The LADP, Latin American Dynamism Project, is an initiative that was born out of a special competitive studies project.
You see this list: AI, advanced materials, biotech, blockchain, robotics, and drones. I feel like I want to start a startup in each one of those verticals. I personally back Brazilian regulators when they try to analyze if they should ban stablecoins. One of the main attributes of open systems is that they are open to enter and to live a system. Venezuela de-articulates networks that manipulated the price of the dollar. So, I mean, the most important word there is manipulated. Hello, everybody, and welcome to another episode of Frontera de Podcast, where we analyze what's happening in crypto in Latin America. I'm Mab, co-founder and CEO of Bando, and I'm here with my good friend Kush, who's currently traveling all around the world as always. My friend, how are you, man?
I'm doing great, Ab. I'm doing great. I'm in New York just now. I just wrapped up a week in DC, a few days in DC. And yeah, man, it's been a great week. I can't complain. We were just reflecting on the last time we recorded was at the Uniswap house, which was just a week ago, but really it feels like it was 6 months ago, which is kind of crazy.
Dude, I think that it's, how yesterday someone told me that most of the planets are in retrograde, or I don't know how to say it in English, like retrogrado. And it kind of feels like that, right? I mean, the US seems like they are going to a social media war between Elon and Trump. Shit ton of things happening all around the world. But yeah, I don't know. We just sometimes we just need to keep living.
The Elon Trump drama was not what I was expecting to wake up to today, to be honest. But yes, Tesla had its worst performance since September 2020. So seems like Elon's probably a little upset, and obviously Trump is as well. So we'll see how that pans out. But I think the cool thing about this industry is it's also quite insular in many ways. Just the technological innovations and the adoption happens in its own step function and tends to be quite safeguarded from the rest of the world, which I think is really fascinating.
Yeah. That's also, there's so much happening around that sometimes, I mean, looking at these things is almost irrelevant. I mean, we cannot say it's irrelevant because it's a global world, like the world order. But let's talk about, man, you've been cooking. There's been a lot of things that the Odisea team has, you're pushing. So what is this? You just published this. And actually, I'm really curious about this because what the hell is the Latin America Dynamism Project? What did you do here? Tell me all about it.
Yeah, so the LADP, Latin American Dynamism Project, is an initiative that was born out of the Special Competitive Studies Project, which is a project launched by Eric Schmidt, who was the former CEO and chairman of Google. And within that, he has a fellowship program called the International Strategy Forum, which I belong to. Essentially, the ISF fellowship looks to sort of support and bolster emerging leaders at the intersection of geopolitics and advanced technologies. So my just deep relationship with the Ethereum ecosystem and then just strong interest in geopolitics is essentially what led me here. And then whilst I was participating in this program, so I was actually in Korea meeting with well, at the time, I didn't know this, but he eventually went on to become a really close friend. His name is Leonardo. He used to work at Amazon's quantum division, worked at the European Commission. And we were sitting in a jjimjilbang, which is a sauna in Korea. And we were just discussing, I think one of the cool things, and Ab, I think this has been our story as well, when you want to build really cool projects with other people, the prerequisite is just becoming friends with them, right? Because you're going to go through ups and downs, but you always need that stable base. Anyway, so that friendship with Leonardo and I really started to flourish, and then we started thinking about, hey, what would it be like to fuse Leo's experience in quantum computing and then public policy with my interest in Latin America, innovation, venture, startups. And that's how the Latin American Dynamism Project was born, right? And essentially this venture and this project looks to explore how do we accelerate frontier technologies, so the world's most advanced technologies in Latin America. So what's really cool, this isn't just about crypto, right? It's about AI, it's about biotech, it's about quantum, it's about nuclear, it's about all these other super exciting frontier tech verticals. And we just published this massive report, which is about 170 plus pages that dives into the opportunities for frontier tech in Latin America. And for the audience here, what you're listening to is essentially, and what you'll be reading in this report, hopefully, is a really complex and very well articulated thesis on why Latin America needs frontier technologies to essentially leapfrog its development and a number of geopolitical implications and so forth. So number one, and then two, we sort of unpack the challenges for frontier tech investing. I mean, Nab, you're a frontier tech founder yourself, right? You know that it's really challenging to raise capital in the region, right? And then thirdly, we provide some recommendations, really practical recommendations for governments, so public sector, private sector, for entrepreneurs, for universities, and so forth, to figure out how do we build a very robust and cohesive frontier tech ecosystem. So looking forward to having the audience read it and share their thoughts. I'm curious, like, what you think about the overall thesis of frontier tech in the region, and how you think about the need for, I know, Frontera was started by a massive report, right? And like Alicia has a research-driven firm. So it's like, I think research is so important to justify someone doing anything in the world. But yeah, would love your takes on this.
Dude, first I'd like to congratulate you for this, because it's how many pages is this thing? Like
170.
170. Okay. And I think that the table of contents speaks a lot about this report. So first, it's the forward, 4 pages, 2 pages of acknowledgement, 6 pages of executive summary, 3 pages of methodology, a round of 8 pages on what is deep tech, then a round of 5 pages on structural changes. Then the LATAM deep tech landscape is a round of 12 pages. Funding gaps, 100 pages. I mean, it talks a lot about the main challenge. Actually, it's 106 pages talking
It's
about
a very
funding
long.
gaps. So this is just like, I like that this can become a meme. A meme in a good way, in the sense of, let's meme into existence that Latin America is underfunded. As founders, the best way to go through this underfunding reality is just building and demonstrating how important this region is. So could you tell me also a little bit more about deep tech? Because the other day I was pitching someone Bando, and they told me, oh, that's deep tech. And I was just thinking, like, it's just payments on stablecoins. What do you mean by deep tech?
Yeah, so deep tech is actually like a bit of a, as with anything that tries to categorize anything in the world, right? There are some subjective definitions, but the way we think about deep tech is essentially it's technology that has a lot of scientific rigor and academic knowledge behind it. So this might be, say, quantum computing, for example, cryptography, biotech, et cetera, et cetera. Oftentimes, the life cycle that it takes for this technology to mature and to be able to be scalable for market is on the order of, maybe sometimes even a decade. And when we think about cryptography, for example, it's taken, Bitcoin 10 years to be fully adopted by the traditional financial systems, more than 10 years, right? Ethereum is kind of reaching that velocity, escape velocity, and all of these sort of cryptographic distributed systems are, it's a very, very long development process. It's not like you deploy an app and all of a sudden, like, everything's good to go and ready for market, right? And then the third component that also categorically defines deep tech is oftentimes technology that requires a lot of capital inputs. So, for example, again, zero knowledge cryptography has taken hundreds of millions of dollars, if not billions of dollars, to be developed to the state where it is today, and now it underpins and will hopefully continue to be this sort of aggregation layer for distributed systems, right? So those, by and large, are sort of like the three definitions of deep tech. You can get into a lot more nuances around, how long does it take, and what kind of academic research does it come from, and so forth. But that's essentially like the basic premise of what deep tech is. So, in Bando's case, and again, it's like you can honestly argue that are things deep tech or not? Yeah, but then we've got, again, like a few examples here. So AI, advanced materials, biotech, blockchain, robotics, photonics, quantum computing, right? Like those are just a few different categories for deep tech that stand out. So, man, this is like a super robust report. I want to give a massive shout out to Claudio. He is just a beautiful, like, mind and incredible researcher, and feel super honored for his work to make this happen. I mean, we have Joker as well on our team, and researchers, like, they're so hard to come by, but when you find one, you're just like, oh my God, thank you for being just an incredible human. So
Yeah, dude, this is so exciting. I mean, you see this list: AI, advanced materials, biotech, blockchain, robotics and drones, photonics and electronics, quantum computing, and I feel like, fuck, I want to start a startup in each one of those verticals. No wonder why founders that have done a big exit invest in this type of things. One else that I would include here maybe might be genomics, and
yeah, absolutely.
I think that's like gene editing and all of that. But well, dude, congrats for this. I mean, Odisea is cooking, and we're shilling Odisea today, so let's talk also about, dude, what happened in Incubase. I think that this is not only a shill, but also, I mean, this base is running an incubator in Latin America. That's huge, and the program started. So tell us more about it.
Yeah, I mean, I think more than a shill, I think it's just because you guys are a part of this program as well, right? I think it's sort of reaping the benefits of all of our incredible work that I think we've been collectively doing, right? Uh, so BaseBatches, which was this program that Base was running, essentially proposed, hey, what would happen if instead of like running through, a build-a-thon and then just dropping things off there, what if we built like a much more intentional way for builders to essentially take their products to market, right? So that's where BaseBatches comes in. It was a build-a-thon, which hundreds of people around or thousands of builders around the world participated in. Of that, we selected 65 of them to then go on to participate in these programs. So we've divided the programs into sort of east and west, roughly, mainly because of time constraints and so forth. And we have an incredible lineup of speakers and mentors, and we're going really, really like hands-on to the point where we've dedicated all of our developer resources towards saying like, do you need a smart contract engineer, front-end engineers, AI specialists, right? And so we're essentially dedicating a lot of our developer resources to working very hands-on with a lot of the founders. You're going through the program as well, right? So tell me more. We had we've had a few sessions already, but would love your takes on today's session, generally like how you think about this program from the startup perspective.
I think that it all depends on the stage where your startup is. I think that Bando might be one of the companies that is more later stage because we already have like a working product. We've iterated a couple of cycles. We have a really couple of solid distribution partners, and I think that the value that I see to this product or to this incubator is the quality of people that we can have access to get feedback. Today we had a session with 3 super senior designers in Coinbase, and always talking about design is something that it can get really subjective, or you can be a great designer and provide great feedback. And out of that session, for example, I came back with the team and I asked, hey guys, are we misnaming this element of the product? Because maybe we are confusing the user just because of the way that we want to present the product rather than how the user is really interacting with it. So it's super motivating to see that Coinbase and Base, the both organizations are investing so much effort on this, because at the end, if you think of blockchains as cities, you want people to build on your land, on your real estate, right? So this is the incentive for them to do it, or this is the way that they incentivize different companies and communities around the world to do it. So congrats for executing this. I'm really excited. I think that next weeks for Bando are going to be long nights, long weekends, and a lot of work. And also,
the really cool thing there is like that at the end you get to pitch in front of Coinbase Ventures as well.
Yeah,
right?
Exactly.
Which not everyone gets the opportunity to do. And so like we've essentially like the way the program worked is you participate in the build-a-thon, then we filter for quality, and then we filter for additional quality, and then you end up pitching in front of Coinbase Ventures. And I think that frankly says so much about the intentionality. But what do you think about this, right? Because as you said, is like blockchains, and this is something that's like particularly relevant to this podcast as well, right? Like blockchains are all scrambling to figure out how they get builders building on their blockchains. And now it's not just like the Bitcoin ecosystem and Ethereum and then Solidity, and then you've got Rust, and then Solana, and now you've got Move and Aptos and Suri and so forth, right? Like, how do you think about what are the gaps that you see? Because you guys are also doing Starknet House, right? So let's talk more about why these types of programs are so important.
Yeah, I think that there are this framework. It's completely attributed to you. You told me this, so you can evaluate blockchains on a couple dimensions. The first one is, do they have users? The second one is, do they have volume? The third one is, do they have a distinguished technology or a specific technology? And the fourth one is, do they have capital? And I think that projects generally go like, instead of analyzing that in that process, they first analyze, can this blockchain give me money, yes or no? And that's such a big mistake, such a big mistake, because I mean, all of these organizations have hundreds of millions of dollars of treasury, right? So if you think that you are special because someone's giving you $25,000, it's kind of stupid to think about that, right? The second thing is that if you compromise the quality of your project, deploying it in a technology that, or in a blockchain that maybe doesn't have a lot of users, then you're gonna circle around a lot of pain because you're never gonna have traction. And we've been discussing this for some weeks. There are two. Actually, I think that recently three super interesting blockchains. The first one, well, Solana, obviously, then Base, and there are the rest. I think depending on the product. If you want to do a financial product, you need to do it in the L1. But also, I think that there are two upcoming competitors that might be Arbitrum and recently Celo. Since they migrated to be an L2, the amount of users in that network is super interesting. And for example, today I was talking with Guti from the Odisa team, and he told me he was asking like, tell me the last three transactions that happened in Bando, and I told Guti, well, this one was for 5 cents, this one was for 50 cents, and this one was for $5. So people talk about micropayments, and we're already doing that, and we're doing that specifically in Bando, right? So deciding which is the right blockchain to launch is fundamental. And I think that these three or these four categories that you helped me think about is the way that it has cleared my thinking on what's the best way to approach a network when you want to build on top of them.
Yeah, and sometimes you make decisions. I love that like framework as well, but I think it's just because I've worked with sort of different blockchains and have seen firsthand. And I mean, you're a builder, like you've made decisions like, do we deploy on Celo? Do we deploy on this chain, on that chain, whatever. But anyways, we're getting a message here from our editors in the back that we need to move on and actually get to the crypto news. So,
dude, so winners of the LATAM BaseBatch. So Vaquita, Rappi Money, TunePort in consumer in AI, Jesse XBT, Leprechaun, crypto regulation entity, AI Art Hubs, I assume. So yeah, 2, 4, 5, 7 teams won the BaseBatch.
Yeah. So congrats to all the founders, and I am personally so looking forward to working very closely with all of you and helping you take the idea to the next stage over the course of this incubate thing. So, but Al, we got some great, crazy news to run through, man.
Yeah. I really like how optimistic you are, because you said we have some great news, because we are always kind of happy, but
great and crazy. Yeah.
And a couple of them are not great, but
and
we
not
need to
so
cover
great.
them.
Yes,
exactly. Yeah. So the first one that is okay is we've been talking a lot about the regulation of stablecoins in Brazil, and I personally back Brazilian regulators when they try to analyze if they should ban stablecoins. I mean, in the Aaron Stanley from the Brazil Crypto Report told us that 1/3 of money that left Brazil in 2024 was through stablecoins. So definitely, one of the main attributes of open systems is that they are open to enter and to leave a system. So it could be a risk for regulators or for a country. And the Brazilian regulators were analyzing if they should ban stablecoin withdrawals, and they put this regulation to receive comments, and now they received comments and they say that they are reshaping the regulation. So that's a good thing. Still, I'm not sure what's the best way to go here.
Yeah, I mean, this is like democracy, but Brazil's one of the things that Brazil actually does quite well compared to the rest of Latin America is that it has a fairly stronger rule of law and respect for the republic, essentially, right? And it's like it's not that any one individual entity can come in with some sort of crazy policy like, hey, you can't self-custody stablecoins, right? And so that was the initial proposal, was you can't withdraw from a centralized exchange to your self-custodial wallet any stablecoins, because essentially you'd be sort of holding these assets that the Brazilian government might not want you to hold. And people really pushed back on that. And it was one of the very first things that we covered in Frontera, in fact. And we were quite convicted that hopefully this would change, because it seemed like a completely outlandish proposition. And we spoke with Mila and spoke with a few other people that this was, exactly. We spoke about the fact that, so here we go. Literally, like, this is something that we covered like very, very early on. We all spoke about it further with Aaron from Brazil Crypto Report and so on. So this is a big win for Brazil, and congrats to everyone and anyone who has been involved in basically not allowing this to happen.
Yeah, and I just want to highlight the essay that we published about the Brazil Balancing Act a couple of weeks ago, because I mean, the left curve take or the middle curve take is like, they are trying to ban, they don't know nothing about crypto, that's so stupid. But I mean, when you analyze it, they are in a crossroad. That's what we put in this report. You need to subscribe to our newsletter. We're producing the best research about Latin America, and there are, I mean, regulators need to have the brakes. Technology needs to push things forward, right? And at the end of this report, we say, como, I mean, they're just in a crossroad. It's not a happy ending. I mean, either way, they might lose something, either by over-regulation or by opening their complete monetary system. They could be in a risk of depreciating the Brazilian real. So yeah, that story was really important this week. The second one, it's a really terrible story actually. So
Yeah.
the government of Nicolás Maduro in Venezuela, they are directly attacking companies around the dollar paralelo. The dollar paralelo is in economies where they have currency controls. Basically, the state defines the FX or the exchange rate in which the dollar trades. But basically, if you do that, that's not the real price of the dollar. Uh, that's when the dollar paralelo term was coined in Venezuela. And this week, the terrible news: several companies that were doing basically providing dollars to the Venezuelan market, they were shut down, and also 20 people that were related with these web pages and Instagram pages were incarcerated by the Venezuelan government. This is terrible news. I mean, what
Yeah.
are your
I
takes
mean,
here?
well, so I think it's important also set a bit of context here, right? We were just talking about countries with good rule of law in Latin America, and then now we go to the complete like opposite end of the spectrum, which is Venezuela. Basically, Venezuela has been under a dictatorship for a very, very long time now. Nicolás Maduro, who's the president, keeps getting supposedly reelected. There are many contentions with regards to the extent to which he's actually being reelected. That's a completely different story for another time. The main question here, specifically with regards to the news story, is the following. So oftentimes when governments end up inflating their currency away, right, as we saw happen in Argentina, as we've seen happen in Turkey, as we've seen happen all over the world, these governments, what they end up doing is they end up trying to put capital controls on the extent to which people can trade money in and out. So for example, in Mexico, you cannot open a US dollar bank account as a retail user, right? And to some extent, that's essentially to protect the peso because they don't want people fleeing, swapping their pesos and using dollars essentially, right? We saw what happened in Argentina in El Corralito in 2001, where the government essentially seized all the dollars in the Argentine accounts and then just converted them back to pesos and then didn't allow people to withdraw this. We covered this somewhat similar situation that happened in Bolivia a couple of months ago. My most viral tweet yet was about this. So now what's happening in Venezuela is there's different currencies for the Bolivar, which is the Venezuelan currency. And the government does not want anybody to transact without the official currency, right? Which essentially places the Bolivar in a much stronger position than it actually is. So there were, a number of platforms, and oftentimes USDT and other stable coins, Bitcoin, Ethereum, etc., act as like actual inflation hedges for people. And this is the main takeaway, and like why I just wanted to set the context here for the audience. But the important thing here is that governments in Latin America are deflating the value of their currency. And not only are they doing that, they're also putting authoritarian restrictions on the currencies that people can use or not. So, by jailing people that talk about, the actual price of the free market price of the Bolivar versus the dollar, by forcing companies to shut down, that perhaps enable basically the free transaction of value, which is a crazy reason to force the closure of a company. So actually, this is probably one of like the saddest news I think that we've actually had to report in Frontera today, but I do think that it just reinstantiates the importance of crypto in this region because unfortunately we have to deal with these types of actors.
Yeah, dude, and take a look at the narrative. Like Venezuelan news outlets that they are obviously tied to the government. Then the news that they report is Venezuela de-articulates networks that manipulated the price of the dollar. So I mean, the most important word there is manipulated. I mean, if you let a market have like natural supply and demand, are you manipulating the market? Who's manipulating the market? And also an important part of the dollar paralelo, the parallel dollar, is that most of it was USDT, because that's the USDT and cash, right? Obviously. So yeah, really terrible news. I think that as builders, we need to be worried about these things. And also, how can you act now? Like if you want to address the Venezuelan market, that maybe you don't want to get incarcerated, right? For pushing technology, for pushing code. So I don't know. Just sad news for the region.
It's super sad, man. Like we've had friends who have been personally affected in like really drastic ways through this, right? And so I think that it's what can the audience do that's listening to this is hire Venezuelans, like help them kind of get their leg up. Venezuelans are incredibly hardworking, really proactive people. Like some of the best founders we've had on this podcast are from Venezuela. The Felix
Yeah,
guys. We've had El Dorado on here as well. Like if
yeah,
I have many friends who are Venezuelan who are literally some of the most. The founder of Kavak is Venezuelan, right? Like they're some of the most resilient people, and like I hope that just if you're in Venezuela, just make sure people stay safe and yeah.
yeah. Let's go to better news. So these are news from our friends in Etherfuse. They just launched their feature to mint and redeem CETES on chain. That is a yield bearing asset on chain. This is the government bond of Mexico. And if you have CETES, the MXNE, you can now send it to a smart contract and get Mexican pesos in the traditional banking system in a matter of seconds. You can do this on Base and Solana. And why do we cover this? This is the first yield bearing asset that you can directly redeem in the traditional financial system. And that's huge news for anyone trying to build in Mexico. These are basically automated on and off ramps with a really serious company behind them that it's Etherfuse. We have them on the pod. We've chatted with them before. What do you think about this progress, man?
Well, we just went from like one of the government completely shutting down crypto to you now can on and off ramp and like mint and redeem government bonds, right? All and free. And I think that well, first of all, props to Dave and the Etherfuse team. Dave is ex Apple engineer. Like the guy is such a deep thinker about what people actually want. I can tell he's done a lot of market research. Particularly now we're just at the Uniswap house in Mexico, and I think that I don't know, we've absolutely just like done an amazing job in exploring and like unpacking, okay, what does the Mexican market actually want? And I think Dave from Etherfuse has essentially done a great job of building this product, right? And I think yield bearing assets are super important. It's like table stakes, right? Like all of these other stable coins have Agora and Mountain and so forth have all been born out of the recognition that actually there's like a fat margin that it doesn't get passed down to people who are, essentially giving Circle and Tether loads of resources for them to keep a lot of the treasuries, right? So, yeah, man, this is great. No, I'm very happy that that Dave crushed it on this one.
Yeah, the whole Etherfuse team is really, really, really cool. And also I really like that they have this win and help win mentality as well. I mean, you can send them an email, a DM, and they are willing to help. And man, the final news of this week is something, I mean, this is borderline crazy in a way that it's exciting and scary at the same time. World is having a partnership with Rappi to to help people orb themselves in their house. Like Rappi is basically the Uber Eats of Latin America. They are also the Latin American super app. You can do they do banking, they don't do ride hailing, they do food delivery. They also have a ton of different verticals, and they partner with World. And I don't know, you can order like as you order a McDonald's, you can now order an orb to get onboarded into World. This is super interesting. I mean, they have around of 12 million people, and they have around of 1 million monthly active users already. It's crazy.
What do you think about this from a distribution like strategy though, right? Like to me, are we reaching this like state of saturation where World is like, we need to send the orb to your house basically? Because like it's been really effective, right? And like it naturally just makes a lot of sense. Like if you give people $10 to get their eyeball scanned, they'll do that, right? That's like a couple meals, 2 to 3 meals in Latin America. So I
Yeah.
think that like it just makes sense that people do that. And then if you refer someone, that's another $10, right? And so boom, there you go. You've like fed yourself for a whole day. And so, but what do you think about this partnership? I mean, it's unique. Let's put it that way. Like I haven't seen Rappi partner with anybody else in this capacity, right?
Well, yeah, I don't think that there's no one like World today in the world. I mean, what do I think? I don't think that we are reaching a saturation level, but also I think that Rappi is a really strong brand in Latin America, and they partner they partnered with Rappi before. I don't know if you remember this, to put like scanning sites in these sites where a lot of Rappi delivery people go and need to do, I don't know, some sort of a process. So because I think that the demographic for world is perfectly these people that do food delivery, or someone that basically will will be keen to give their data for a universal basic income, right? So
But this
uh,
is interesting. Like, are these the users who are going to be using DeFi protocols?
no, definitely not. Well, I mean, yes, but in the backend. I mean, they're gonna click spend, they're gonna go to Bando, and they're gonna spend their tokens directly. But they don't need to know that we have smart contracts. They don't need to know that we are in different blockchains. They just need to spend. That's why that's part of the thesis. I don't know if you've contemplated this on your LATAM long thesis, but one of the things that makes LATAM such an interesting place for crypto is that we see crypto as money and not as investment. And when you see something as money, you are keen to spend it. If you see something as an investment, you don't want to sell it. So that's why people in the emerging markets are perfect for to implement stablecoins. So yeah, they won't be signing transactions. They won't have a ledger. This type of people won't go to uniswap.org and swap. They might use Uniswap through a front end like the World app.
Totally. I agree with that. And one thing I do wonder, though, I think if you think about it purely from a company building perspective, like, yes, you're giving away free money, and of course you're attracting millions of people because you're giving away, tens, if not hundreds of millions of dollars. So the question is, like, what's the lifetime value of that customer? And I think that's and do you, like, when you divide that by the CAC, right, the customer acquisition cost, I think that's, but the jury's still out there. People are kind of still using World, but if anything, it's just a reason for World to start thinking more practically about, oh my God, we have millions of users. What are they going to do now, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean, also it's an exciting, as you said, an exciting distribution channel, because now crypto becomes about solving a problem, not about managing liquidity. And that's
Or
a
reaching
big,
users.
or reaching, yeah, exactly, or reaching users. Uh, super exciting. Also, World is a really interesting chain from a user perspective, because they have literally millions of users, because everything in the World app happens in the World chain. So man, yeah, excited to what's happening, what's coming. Tell me a little bit about your next 2 weeks, because we might see each other. We're not sure yet.
Yeah, so I just wrapped up DC. I'm in New York. I'm going to Prospera for Crypto Cities Week. So Prospera is this economic free zone that's being set up in Honduras. So there's a Crypto Cities Week happening there. We're co-hosting a hackathon around the future of network states and building tooling for network states. So we're running that in partnership with the Prospera team. Then I'm heading to Buenos Aires because the next Uniswap house is happening there, and we're supporting the Uniswap team and making all that happen. And then I'm not sure. Then I need to sleep.
Then you need to come to Mexico, play some
Exactly, and play more
paddle, do some
paddle. Yep.
soda. Exactly. Dude, actually, I'm gonna play a little paddle right now, just to,
Awesome.
I don't know. It's been intense weeks and days. So for you that are listening, thank you for tuning in to another Frontera episode. Remember to subscribe to the newsletter. Also, we're gonna be present in the Stablecoin conference by Ibit, so it's gonna be a really really exciting event in Mexico City. And thank you for
Get a
listening. And man,
discount. Frontera 10 as well with
Frontera
for the
10, it's a
stablecoin conference.
discount. Dude, thank you for another episode. Take care. See you.
Let's go. Peace.